Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for frame rate is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
Frame Rate is brought to you by MailRoute.info. MailRoute is a secure hosted service that provides enterprise-grade virus and spam filtering to companies of any size. Try it right now absolutely free at MailRoute.info.
New York, a city full of elitist assholes. A police force that won't do anything about it. And one man who couldn't take it anymore. One man sick and tired of their condescending glances. That one man? Charles Bronson. And it's about time he started killing hipsters. Sure, he wears a mustache, but he does so unironically. Turn it down, hipster. No one wants to hear your playlist. Cleaning up the streets. One unnecessary headband at a time. Hey man, is your coat a vintage coat? No, it's a right now coat. Killing hipsters. Killing hipsters because nobody else would. That and they also raped his wife a bunch of times. Bang. You're seen as dead. Killing hipsters. Rated PG. An action-packed smorgasbord of revenge. And when you least expect it, Jeff Goldblum.
No! That's the best part right there.
It's Frame Rate. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Brian Brushwood.
And when you least expect him, Jason Howell.
Oh, hey, yeah, that's me. Unexpectedly.
That really is far and away the best part of the video. And when you least expect them, Jeff Goldblum.
You know what? It's right up there with no, it's a right now coat.
Yes. Dude, I love it. I love the internet and everything about it. This whole remix culture is the best thing to happen to humanity, or the worst thing, depending on how you look at it. How you doing, Tom?
No, it is the best thing to happen to humanity. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing supremely well, getting ready for the big travel day. Tomorrow, National Opt-Out Day. So, of course, I'm going to take my whole family and wait in lines to go fly to San Diego. So that'll go well,
Pick yourself a cute TSA agent.
Yeah. I always
be in
take
your
the
line,
gropes
please?
anyway. Like I'm a firm believer that anything that intrusive should feel really awkward because that would
for
be
everyone.
honest. If you don't, then I think you're just I don't know. I don't want to whitewash or sugarcoat anything.
Yeah, I think people are forgetting that it's not just you that suffers in the pat down; it's also the agent performing it.
That's true.
Most of them don't want to be doing that.
There's a fan of the show who I've been swapping emails with, and he can't talk on the record, but he's very clear. He's like, "Hey, man, this is a job, and no, it's not fun at times." And yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but we are tasked with a certain duty, and we gotta obey the policies. So change the policies if you don't like this.
This is, of course, Frame Rate, where we rate the frames, be they on the web, on your television, via broadcasts or internet, and we always open with the big story.
This just in, the big story.
Who do we have to thank for that?
That's Bill Meeks over at Meeks Mixed Media. He put that together with us. As you know, a lot of what we do on Frame Rates and so much of what exists on the web is built by the fans and for the fans. That's kind of our credo here at Frame Rate. So everything is sent in to us by fans of the show. Everything, the whole freaking show. In fact, everything I say is pre-written by fans before the show.
I'm receiving a crowdsourced algorithm of words that are fed into my brain, and I speak them virtually speeding AppleScript PHP 5.
That's frighteningly close to what we actually do with the chat room because they really are the fourth unspoken voice here on the show. So what is our big story?
The big story, a new Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, but no Joss Whedon. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, good. Because if you ask one thing about Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans, they say, we love the characters, we love the situations, we just wish Joss Whedon would have less to do with it. Less to do with it. We want...
Everyone says, gosh, you know what I don't like about Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Joss Whedon. Otherwise, it's perfect. If you just take away the creative driver behind it, it would be awesome.
Yeah, totally. What are they going to do, and how different can they make it? And would it be a good thing? Because there's a very distinctive voice for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which, by the way, did you ever finish the whole show? Did you go through the whole series?
I have not. I have not gone all the way through the TV series. And the reason for that is my wife does a show called Bite Club. And one of the things they do when they're not talking, like when True Blood's not on or Vampire Diaries isn't on, they talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So we kind of have to wait. I could just go ahead without her and start watching it. But if I'm going to stay with her, I have to go along with their schedule. So that's why I haven't finished.
Things. What's your policy as far as DVD adultery? Like, are there shows like you would be in serious trouble if you watched without her?
We have an open television relationship. We just need to talk about it, and everybody needs to be on the same page, and then it's fine.
Oh. She's cool with that?
Yeah, as long as we've talked about it, you know.
I hear about chicks like that, but like for real, if you just go out, you just watch whatever you want. You come back, and you're like, yeah, I watched it.
No. It's not why, you know, I have to say first, like, hey, is it, honey, you know, baby, is it okay if I, you know, just go ahead and watch The Wire? And she'll be like, all right, yeah, that's okay. You go ahead, have fun, knock yourself out.
I think it's got to be a show that means nothing to her. Like she's just kind of watching it just for my interest as well.
Yeah, there have been occasions where I've said, "Hey, can I go ahead and watch this?" Not as often, but where she's like, "No, actually, I want to watch that with you. So hold on." And there's been occasions where she's like, "Please go ahead and watch it without me," and I'm like, "No, I'll wait for you because I really don't want to watch it that badly either."
Yeah, I've had the reverse where I found out she was out watching shows, and it turns out to be a show that I really would have been into, and I was like, "You watched it without me?"
That happened with That happened to me with Mad Men.
She started without.
You know, I went off to Vegas for a wild weekend of Consumer Electronics Show, and when I came back, she had watched disc 1 of Mad Men without me.
Wow. Now, this was one that you hadn't, did she know that she was betraying your trust by doing that?
She did. And so what she did immediately when I got back from CES was hand me the disc, make me sit down on the couch and catch up. She's like,
did she sit there and watch it with you? Because I have done that where it's like, you know, I'm not going to lie to my wife, but it's like, you know, I don't have to tell her that.
No, she was very honest about it. She kind of sat over at the table back in the other room, sort of keeping an eye on it, doing some other stuff.
She kind of half watching it again.
Yeah.
Oh no, did she do the thing where she's like, "This is the good part. I like this. Get ready.
No,
here it comes."
No. She doesn't do annoying stuff like that. I do, but she doesn't.
So back
you're gonna really like this part. Oh yeah, like shut up so I can hear it. Yeah, that's me. I do that.
So what is the thinking behind this? Have they announced what they're gonna do different?
No, all they've said is that
Whit approached us with an exciting idea about how to update Buffy.
Whit Anderson. I keep wanting to say Wes Anderson, which would be a really weird Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That would be awesome. I actually would pay big money to watch Wes Anderson's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It would be super sweet and charming, I guess, like the actual Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's an active fan base eagerly awaiting this character's return to the big screen. We're thrilled to team up with Doug and Roy on a reimagining of Buffy and the world she inhabits. Details of the film are being kept under wraps, but I can say, while this is not your high school Buffy, she'll be just as witty, tough, and sexy as we all remember her to be.
Yeah, so they optioned the rights from the creators, Fran and Kaz Kazooie, and from Sand Dollar Productions. So Joss was brought in on the movie and then did the TV show, but he is not the creator of the original concept.
See, I didn't know that he did the movie. When I read that, I was like, well, he shouldn't bother Joss anyway because it was based on that movie, right? And then I went back, I was like, which he wrote.
Yeah.
So that sort of floored me.
It's going to be a dark reimagining. There's rumors that Sarah Michelle Gellar would be cast in it, which I think would make it weirder. I think they shouldn't do that. If you want to reboot it and not involve Joss Whedon, then you should make it different. I think you've got a small chance of making this work. Everyone is going to be against you at this point. I mean, everybody who is a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is going to be assuming you're going to ruin it until proven otherwise. You are guilty until proven innocent in this case.
But realize that the target demographic, the crowd that should like the project the most, is now of the age where it's very unlikely they will go back and watch the original series because it's too old. When did it start? Like 12, 13 years ago?
Yeah, it was what, 96, I think. I may be off by a year, but somewhere around there.
I don't think a lot of 15 to 24-year-olds are going to go back and watch that series from the beginning, at least without, rolling their eyes at it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the later seasons that happened in the 2000s don't look all that dated, but the first season, that looks like it was shot in 87. I mean, it looks
like
really
you're watching 2-0.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very, very dated. And so I'm a big fan of at least attempting reboots. And I understand like everyone's like, oh, but it's already been told and it's been told well. And that is true. But the fact is we love our stories, and there are certain songs that we sing a million times over. Amazing Grace has been sung by a million different people, a million different ways over and over and over again. And every time some artist performs Amazing Grace, I don't roll my eyes and say, it was performed by the minstrel bard back in 1703.
Yeah, but that's music. I mean, you're stretching the metaphor there because music is more replayable than a movie or a TV show.
I could not disagree more because movies are mega replayable. That's why DVD sales are so mega huge.
Which do you do? But which do you do more? Listen to a song over and over, or watch a movie over and over? And in those over and overs, what's the count?
Well, and that's true. I do agree that you watch. Well, that's just it. Is I want to hear that story again, but I want to hear a new twist on it. So you're only making my argument even better. Where it's like I love the Batman story, and granted, Batman and Robin was only 2 years ago, and it's the mid 2000s. So it's like when they announced they were rebooting Batman, I was like, are you crazy? The latest movie was just a couple of years ago, but I think we're all glad that we did it. We love what Christopher Nolan's done with it.
Also, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is still popular in comic form. So the old Sarah Michelle Gellar looking Buffy is still out there kicking around.
With new stories. I mean, I assume new stories.
Yeah, with new stories, exactly. In fact, the final season of Buffy was done as a comic.
Well, as long as we're on this, and I like this whole topic of reboots in general, I added a last minute. I'm going to do an audible and throw in something we were going to talk about film. I want to talk about it now because we're talking about reboots.
Brought to you by mail route. I call an audible. Right. Okay.
Okay. Sorry. It took me a second there. What is the most needed of a dark, gritty reboot franchise in all of movie history?
Battlestar Galactica?
No. Already had it.
Batman?
Unless you want to do like a darker rebooter version of Battlestar Galactica. Think bigger. Come on.
Inspector
Where's
Gadget.
the money at?
You're saying what hasn't been done. I thought you were saying of things
what
that
needs to be done.
Oh, what still? I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, so what still needs to be rebooted as a dark reimagining?
Not Aquaman.
No.
Not $6 Million Man.
No.
Cameron's all over this.
Spider-Man.
Not Spider-Man. Not Cop Rock. No dark gritty reboot of Cop Rock. No Happy Days. No Thundercats. No
Adam's Family.
You ready for it?
Monsters.
Right there, dude. Peter Pan goes gritty, realistic. Did you read this?
No, I haven't read this yet. So what? Okay, Peter Pan. Actually, no, this is a good candidate, right? Because Peter Pan, the story is a little darker than most of the depictions have been on movie and TV.
Well, and listen to the way they do this too. This is I thought this was an insane, stupid idea until I read what they were saying here. Swiss filmmaker Ben Hibben is set to direct Pan, a gritty contemporary adaptation of J.M. Barrie's classic Peter Pan tale for Social Capital Films. In this incarnation, Captain Hook is a burned-out ex-police detective trying to track down a kidnapper whom witnesses describe as being childlike. How insane would that be, dude? A dark, gritty reboot of Peter Pan?
So this is a retelling, not just a reboot, and I like that.
Yes.
This is, you've seen this done with Shakespeare a million times, right? Where they take the concepts from Hamlet or the concept from Macbeth, and then they set it in a, sort of a modern day situation, or Arthurian tales they do this a lot too. And so it's almost unrecognizable until you start to think about it. And you're like, oh, okay. Or the like, classic is
Where Art Thou
the Odyssey. Exactly. Yeah. So this is doing something like that where you kind of play with the forms. I like it.
Apparently, the script was previously picked up in 2006 by New Line, and at one point, Guillermo del Toro was attached to direct. So apparently, it had been around for a while.
Cameron del Toro.
I don't think they're going to do it stupid. That actually would have been cool. Del Toro would have done a pretty dark, awesome, twisted Peter Pan retelling. But I'm going to withhold judgment. I'm a huge fan of remixes and reboots and retellings and mashups. And so if you take two things that do not belong together, a serial kidnapper who looks like a child, and you mash that with Peter Pan, I think there's potential there.
Yeah. Also, if we take that back and put it on Buffy, is there a way? I mean, the thing with Peter Pan is it's so old-fashioned that it benefits from the updating, right? You can just set it in modern times. That's what they're doing with Sherlock. That the film where they just take the Sherlock Holmes story and put it in modern day.
Can we talk about that?
Buffy's still pretty new, though.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Whenever you do a retelling, what you need to do is have a reason for your new style. You have to have a different story to tell. And I think that's why the reboot of V failed. The original V was an amazing miniseries because it was really the story of the rise to power of the Nazis.
Yeah, right.
And, essentially this underground resistance and the persecution of these scientists. And that was very compelling because it spoke on two levels. On the one level, you had, aliens and shooting lasers. On the other hand, you had this amazing dark, this is a time when our grandparents had fought in World War II, and these were still resonating with the public. The new V, if they wanted to make the big money, what they should have done is they should have told something that was relevant to our society. I would have loved to see everybody, the same players from the original V, but old and haggard and resistance fighters, to where now we were seeing a strange tale of terrorism of the last few people.
And they made a nod toward that and tried to depict people as terrorists, but it was not a telling of a terrorist tale that would strike at your heart.
It wasn't anything that twisted your nipple and you were just like, oh, this is agonizing to watch. And it's like, it speaks to me. It makes me uncomfortable. And I think that's what it needed. And I think you could do that with either the Peter Pan, or certainly we're seeing that with Sherlock. Can we talk about Sherlock for a bit?
Yeah, why not? I mean, you're obviously chomping at the bit. You watched it, I take it.
Oh my gosh. Last night I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch the first 15 minutes so I can at least get a feel for it. And then 2 hours later I was finished, and it was amazing.
Now, did you watch all 3 episodes?
No. I only watched the first,
Study in Pink?
like an hour and a half or so, right?
Yeah, Study in Pink.
I loved the fact that apparently Mark Zuckerberg survives after The Social Network, moves to England, and begins to solve crime. I thought that was a very bold direction.
I believe I deserve recognition from this board for solving this case.
No, it's really, really good. And I love some of the storytelling elements where, for example, they add some phrases, some words appear on the screen kind of hinting at the things he notices and the way he sees the world. And it's not annoying and it's not gimmicky. And I hope they continue to do it. And I hope it rests at that same level where it's not that, that annoying CSI gimmick of like, swoosh in, swoosh out. And like, look at that. We spent money on CG. It really does a good job of telling the story from his perspective. And I want to see more of that.
Yeah, and there's 2 more episodes for you to enjoy, and they've commissioned another 3 for next series, which should come out next year. So there's insanely too little of it for how good it is. But I guess that's why it's so good, and you get it in nice big hour-and-a-half chunks instead of being limited.
Each episode is an hour and a half long. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're all long.
Oh, fantastic! All right, well then I'm down with it. This is. It's going to speak to many generations. I think my mom, who always loved the old Sherlock Holmes, will love this as well. And me, my brother was the guy who liked the mysteries. I never really dug any of that old Agatha Christie, the stuff that was on PBS Mystery or any of that. But I loved this show, and I could totally get sucked into it. And I liked the little switcheroo where they set up, there's a character in the first episode that you think is going to mean one thing and ends up meaning something else. So they got me. I was really excited about it.
Well, they're definitely, they're telling new stories, but they are telling them in the Arthur Conan Doyle style. Sherlock Holmes was not a particularly likable character. He was just incredibly smart, and he was too smart for his own good. Watson was always the sympathetic character. Watson was the one you identified with because you weren't as smart as Holmes, and Holmes was dirty and a drug addict and annoying and arrogant, and that's exactly what they're doing. They've taken away that sort of like, oh, I have the pipe, and I'm a very dapper, elegant British man who happens to be rather smart as well, and they've gone back to sort of the essentials of the character and removed the trappings. All of those scenes you see with Sherlock in 221B Baker Street are almost exactly the way I pictured Sherlock Holmes' apartment when I read the Arthur Conan Doyle stories.
Wow. That's
except for the laptop.
And again, talking about this perpetual reboot and remashup culture, we just had a retelling of the Sherlock Holmes story, less than a year ago, last Christmas, right?
Well, yeah, which was kind of a halfway between these two because it was set in the time of the original Doyle stories, but it had Robert Downey Jr. So, of course, it was a little more dirty and disgusting than some of the more sterile treatments have been.
Yeah, but I tell you, I gotta say, after watching the BBC version, I wonder if. I mean, they did great, and it was a good movie for what it was, but I'm so glad that we're going to get more and more episodes in this world in modern times, as opposed to, if we're just going to have one movie, I'd rather have that be in the olden times. I really like what they're doing with everything being new and him being a person of the modern era. I love the fact that, he's obsessed with texting and hates using landline phones, all these weird quirks that I think, again, really speak to the younger culture today.
So if we've learned anything from the big story today, it's that reboots can be very good. But when you don't involve Joss Whedon, we're all likely to be angry at you.
Yes, I think that's clearly what the entire internet is going to say. And I tell you, man, if they screw this up, there will be a backlash. Like, I think everybody will reserve judgment until they see the show for the most part. But, man, they will give it back hard if they screw up Joss Whedon's Buffy.
And they are going to have to be pitch perfect not to be accused of screwing it up, I have a feeling. All right, time now for another big story.
Stop everything. It's another big story.
I love them.
It's the long setup of the, and then it's stop everything. Hold on.
And I love the fact that it's the exact same television. It's like they changed the channel. And it's so perfect. I love it. That's all Bill Meeks. Everyone in the chat room's thanking him right now.
Yes, thank you, Bill Meeks. So this big story is the release of the Green Lantern trailer, which you probably have seen by now. It was released after Frame Rate late last week, and it took the internet by storm. But should we play it again?
Well, you know what? I don't know if we're going to be able to because the article that we linked to had it yanked for. Hold on, no, yeah, I'm not seeing it there. Oh, wait, there is a different one that is official at 720p. I don't know if this is from them or what, but you want to take a look at this? You want to watch this? So it's very polarizing. People got very iffy on whether or not they liked it or not. You want to check it out?
Yeah, let's do.
All right.
Sorry, I gotta run. Make yourself at home, okay? There's water in the tap.
Hal, you're late. This test today, it's important.
I'm gonna make you look good up there, don't worry. Now, let's get these pants off and fly some planes.
Oh, it's a trailer for Top Gun.
I'm flying. It feels like anything is possible. It's like no matter how bad things get, there's something good out there, just over the horizon. The ring. It chose you. Use its power to defend our universe. Become one of us. Become a Green Lantern. The ring says it's a great responsibility. Responsibility? You? Let's hope so. Anything I see in my mind, I can create. The one thing that a Green Lantern is supposed to be is fearless. That isn't me. You have the ability to overcome fear. trouble. Brightest day, blackest night.
All right. So before I say anything, I want to get your opinion on that, Tom. What do you think?
Okay, well, and I have to preface that with the fact that I am not a Green Lantern fan. And I don't mean and it's hard to say. I hate the English language. That people are going to say, oh, so you hate the Green Lantern. No, I'm just saying, like, I am not steeped in knowledge of Green Lantern. That is one of my comic blind spots. So to me, I know about the ring and all of that, and I have a basic understanding. But, you know, when he says his name, I'm Hal, and all that stuff, I don't get that punch that I get when I see something for a comic that I'm really a fan of and all that. That said, it had all the allure of Fantastic Four for me. It just looks like it's kind of a cheap retelling of a comic with some bad acting and some mostly good special effects. So I could probably go either way. I might watch it and enjoy it. I might watch it and think it was really awful, but I don't think I'm going to love it.
See, I don't think it's a matter of the quality of the special effects or even of the acting. And I'm like you. I'm a Marvel guy. I grew up reading Marvel comic books, and there's part of me that still has some bizarre grudge against DC and only begrudgingly admits the stuff I love, like Watchmen. But of the DC universe, I always thought the Green Lantern was a cool character, and I am roughly familiar with the mythos behind it. But specifically, I think that the reason is, and you nailed it when you said Fantastic Four, it's just that we've gotten so used to dark, gritty reboots of everything, hyper-realistic, that a straight-up comic book movie, I think, looks weird to us now. Yeah. And I think is off-putting to some people. And to be honest, I don't know. I had a good time watching the Fantastic Four for what it was. And I don't mind, I'll probably go see this.
Yeah, I watched Fantastic Four and enjoyed myself. I watched Silver Surfer and thought, it could have done better. But I didn't hate it. I didn't loathe it like some people did. So I get that sense from this as well, that I'm going to go in the movie theater, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch it, I'm going to be entertained, and I'm going to forget about it.
Right. Well, I don't hate it. Maybe here's why probably I didn't hate it the way other people did, is I don't have anything invested. This isn't a property that I've invested a lot of emotional credit into, and now it's like I don't want them to screw it up. Like if I had seen stuff that looked pretty bad for the Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, I would have been very upset. I would have been like, screw this movie. You're going to ruin, I'm going to be embarrassed to admit I'm an Iron Man fan, but thankfully they knocked it out of the park instead.
I felt that we were talking about Sherlock Holmes earlier, the Robert Downey version. I felt that way about Sherlock Holmes. I'm like, okay, I like Robert Downey. I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes. They better not mess this up, and they didn't. I felt that way about Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams reboot.
Oh my gosh,
as well. Because I'm a big fan of Star Trek.
But again, that's more dark grittiness. We're just dark and so gritty that anything that looks slightly spit polished, we're just like, nah, So it'll be interesting to see when the pendulum swings the other way. What'll be the first movie that makes us look for everything to be beautiful and candy coated again? Because right now it seems like unless it's dark and they're killing babies, we're not interested.
That's right. I mean, maybe Buffy the Vampire Slayer will be a baby the Vampire Slayer.
Maybe there'll be
Buffy the Baby Slayer.
A baby vampire that slays old people. And then we'll be so disgusted.
That's right.
That's what it's going to be, of course. All right.
All right. And apparently some folks in the chat room are complaining that they changed around a lot. I mean, it looked like Top Gun in the first few minutes of the story. Yeah. And some people are like, wait a minute, what? He's a pilot? I didn't think he was a pilot. But I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just reading out of the corner of my eye. He's in some form of civil service, I mean, I got to imagine, and again, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to get all the Green Lantern fans totally pissed at me. Yeah. Green Lantern sucks. Green Hornet was always better. I don't know. I don't mean that. All right. What I do mean, though, is we have a sponsor, Brian.
What? Get out of town. Our little old show. We got somebody who wants to kick us some bucks. Tell me about him, because I'm hearing about him for the first time.
Do you get spam?
You know what? More than I like.
Don't need
Way
to.
too much spam.
Don't need to get spam. There's no reason for that.
Wait, because you just opt out of spam? Tom, you say no thank you, check spam, yes. Spam sends me a note across the classroom. Do you want me? Check yes or no, and I can check no.
Do you know Tom Johnson? You should know Tom Johnson.
Tell me about Tom.
He wrote a little thing called Hosted Exchange Services for a company called Microsoft.
Never heard of them.
Yeah.
They sound very impressive, though.
Yeah, they're very enterprisey. You probably haven't heard of them. Then he moved on to fight spam. I think he might wear a Spam Fighter superhero suit, although I could be mistaken about that.
Maybe We cannot confirm at this point whether or not there'll be a gigantic summer blockbuster about his battle against spam coming next year. Cannot
Mail route. So he started mailroute.info. Now, this is not for every single person to sign up for. This is for somebody who operates their own website. Do you operate your own website, Brian?
You know what? I have everything handled by Squarespace, but I have a guy who handles my mail parts because
you have You have? Do you operate? So you operate your own email?
Yeah. Yes, I do. But I just realized I just said I hired somebody to handle my mail parts. But go ahead.
Well, the TSA can do that for you for free now. If you run your own mail server, or if you have somebody handling your mail parts for you, you can have MailRoute filter all of that stuff. You still have your mail set up the way you have it set up, but you go to mailroute.info, you sign up for 10% off the life because you're a Twit person and you went to mailroute.info instead of mailroute.com, right?
Right.
And all you have to know how to do is change your MX records. So if your guy knows how to change the MX records, or if you know how to change your MX records in your domain, you do that. MailRoute gets rid of the garbage. All of the spam that comes in gets kicked. All of the actual messages go through. I haven't seen a false positive yet.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what you're saying is like, if for example, people email me at brian@shwood.com, shwood.com, and that goes to the mail server. The people who handle that, if they're worth their salt, if they know a single thing, they have a neuron firing in their skull. I could call and tell them to edit the MX record and switch it over, and then MailRoute can just no spam and never even shows up.
Mailroute.info, try it out for free. And if you're a small business or family user like you are, the list price is $33 a year. But the Twit discounted price is $29.70 per year. That's just about $2.50 a month.
All right, can I confess something? I used to use a service that would I had to download all the emails into Outlook, and half of them would be spam. So they would all go in, and then I watched them slowly go back up and out, right? And that was okay, but it was time consuming. It was wasteful. I had to wait for all that stuff. And the worst part is on my Gmail, because when I check my stuff remotely, all the spam, a bunch of spam would still be there, right? But not, all right.
Nope. This, you can access the junk box if you want to look through and make sure there's not some email that should have got through. I've done that. I've looked. I haven't seen anything yet. But you don't get that stuff. It's just kept away from you. So all you do is get the email you actually want. acedetect@subbrilliant.com is actually a working email address because of MailRoute. Check them out at mailroute.info. Time for Film Thalm. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Film Thalm. We've actually talked about a lot of Film Thalm already.
Yeah, we sort of jumped around. Well, it just fit in too nicely. Talking about reboots and having that news about the Peter Pan reboot and all that stuff, we got caught up in it. But there is still some movies on the horizon that I for one, am very, very excited for. Have you already seen Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows?
I did. I saw it on Friday. I know you're not a huge fan of the Harry Potter, but I liked it. I thought it was a really good movie.
Now, have you?
I thought it was a great Harry Potter movie. I thought it was a really good movie.
It's been really interesting to see how darker and grittier the movies have gotten as the franchise moves on. I saw just a brief snippet of the first movie again. I was just like, wow, that's a Fisher-Price toy. And now we're playing with guns and knives.
But it makes sense, right? Because he's Fisher-Price age in the first movie, and now he's guns and knives age.
That's right, which, as we all know, a bunch of 17-year-olds taking this podcast to their mom and saying, you heard, they said I'm guns and knives age now. Get me. So are you crazy about the books? Like, did you get all excited? You camp out at Amazon? Or I camped out at
Amazon.com. I actually flew up to Seattle and camped out. And they were like, you could just order this online, Tom.
One to steal one off the shipment.
We actually deliver it day of. But yeah. No, I actually, my relationship with Harry Potter began when I worked at Half Price Books in Austin, Texas on Guadalupe Street. And people started coming in, asking us for the Harry Potter books. And I was like, I don't know what those are. We're a used bookstore. And nobody has sold us back any of these yet because it's best-selling. And then they started to sell back Harry Potter books. We put them on the shelf. They'd last like 10 seconds before someone would grab them up. So we were paying like top dollar for those books. And I built up this sort of disdain. I'm like, it's like these people are so annoying with the Harry Potter and who cares? And then I moved to San Francisco and I met someone who was really a big fan of them and convinced me. She's like, no, come on. You have got to read them. They are good. Forget all of the fans. If the fans have turned you off, forget that. Read them. They're good. And so I started reading them. Eileen and I started reading them at the same time. And I saw what she was talking about. I'm like, these aren't Lord of the Rings. These aren't, Winter is Coming, George R.R. Martin stuff. But these are fun stories, and they're good. And they're kind of homages in all different ways to all kinds of fantasy elements. And I became a fan. And at that point, I think only 4 books were out. So from there until the set, for the last 3 books, I definitely was one of those people who got it on day one. I didn't go line up or anything, but I was looking forward to reading it when they came out.
And so you finished the whole series, though, right?
Yeah, I did.
And see, I gave up, man. I gave up, and I don't know if we've already talked about it on the show, but I wanted to like it because everyone else who I respected loved him. But it was fantasy light, and that was fine with me. I didn't mind that. Like, yes, sure, explain to me what a griffin is. Why not? But it was, to me, it was the fact that it just didn't progress. It was that transition from book 4 to book 6, where book 5 was when I was promised it would all change, and it didn't, and I got too annoyed, and I just got fed up.
Book 5 was the hardest book for me in many ways because Harry is a jerk. He's a little crying, whining teenager. Who hates everyone.
Very poor communication skills.
Yeah, and
it's problems. It's like a Three's Company episode in Fantasyland where it's like, if you would just talk and use the proper words, you guys could come to an understanding. But you're just gonna be whining and throw a fit and cast your spells.
Did you ever read book 6, The Half-Blood Prince?
I read the first quarter of it, and I was just
really? Okay.
By then I had too much negative association. I was too pissed off at the main character.
Do you watch them? Have you watched the movies then?
I did watch the movie for episode 6. And even that was weird because it was on opening night, so I was surrounded by people who knew all these characters and knew what was different or whatever. And I was like, well, I kind of like that part. And as we do with movies, when there's the big spoilery thing that happens at the end of episode 6, I was just like, oh, well, that was kind of a bummer, I guess. But I feel like I'm not getting the whole story, and it wasn't impactful.
Oh, you mean when you find out that Snape is made of people?
Yeah, yes, and that Rosebud is made of Spock's dead body.
Right. Yeah, sorry, spoiler alert. So you've watched all the movies, but you haven't.
I have watched all except for this most recent one. The Deathly
Are you
Hallows.
going to watch the Deathly Hallows Part 1?
I mean, eventually. I can't make a priority out of it. I mean, not in a universe where.
Does your daughter want to watch it?
Aliens coming out, or Source Code, or any of these movies that look amazing to me. Like, there's nothing about it that speaks to me, and I just.
Is your daughter going to make you go see it with her? She care?
She hasn't started reading it.
She like, okay.
She'll probably discover it after the fact. But I tell you what, she's definitely coming to Tron with me.
Okay.
That's for dang sure.
So here I'm not going to try to convince you to see Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows because it sounds like it's just not right for you, and there's no reason to push it. But just as a last word on it, my impression of this is a movie where the characters are grown up. For the first time, they are grown up and they are facing real evil in the world. And people die. And people you care about die. And this is where, childhood is over in this book. And the world is full of bad things and bad people who do horrible things. And it's no more like, oh, my wand exploded at the end. That's awful for me because I can't afford it. No, this is like, I am going to kill you, your mother, and put you through all kinds of pain.
Do they still pretend to go to school, though? That drove me nuts.
They don't go to school.
Like there's a war, and they're like, oh, it's back to school time.
Nope. There is no school. You get a brief scene on the Hogwarts train, but that does not involve Harry or Hermione or any of the main characters. They're like, no, we're not going to school. There's a war on.
All right. Well, maybe I'm down for that. Maybe it'd be great if they had, well, actually, I'm not even going to conjecture about it. Maybe I will give it a chance.
All right.
I'm going to reserve one coupon to make you watch a movie that you don't think you're going to like.
All right, fair enough. Well, I don't think you should watch it. I'm just saying that's my impression of it and why I liked it so much better than the others. And at the end of it, I was like, give me part 2 right now. I want to finish this thing up. But one thing I think we can both agree on is that Source Code from the brilliant Duncan Jones, who brought us Moon, has a trailer out. And As bigdumbobject.co.uk puts it, it's The Matrix meets Quantum Leap meets Groundhog Day.
Yes. And it's dark and gritty, which means that we won't think it's cheesy at all. I think it looks, and I watched this trailer not having
gritty
about the big story, the big story behind it. And I really, do you want to watch the trailer right now?
Yeah, let's just kick back and watch this, and then we can talk about it.
All right, I have it queued up. Oh, actually, you do. Never mind.
Hey, Sean. Hey. I took your advice. It was very good advice. Sean.
Look, I can see that you think you know me, but I don't know who you are. My name is Captain Coulter Stevens.
You're kind of freaking me out.
No.
Talk to me, Sean.
Look, I don't know who Sean is, and I don't know who you are.
Welcome back, Captain Stevens.
Where am I?
You are inside the source code.
What is the source code?
It's a computer program, Captain.
Source code enables you to cross over into another man's identity in the last 8 minutes of his life.
At 7:48 this morning, a bomb exploded on a train outside of Chicago, killing everyone on board. A man named Sean Fentress was on that train. He is now you. Think, Captain, remember back. Who bombed the train?
I don't know who bombed the train.
Then try again.
Wait, no.
So, what do you think?
It's the same train, but it's different.
We've been informed there will be another attack in 6 hours. If you find the bomber, the next attack can be prevented. Concentrate on the passengers in your car. Look for ones who seem nervous. As always, you will have 8 minutes.
8 minutes, and then I blow up again. What would you do if you knew you had less than 8 minutes to live?
I'd make those seconds count.
I want to go back in. I'm going to save her.
You can't. It doesn't work that way.
Christina is dead.
She doesn't have to be.
You cannot alter this reality while inside the source code.
I'm asking you to have the decency to let me try. What's going on? He's in trouble. Tell me everything's gonna be okay.
Everything's gonna be okay.
I'm so down with this. I'm so thoroughly excited about this movie, and of course it makes no sense, that you could just have a program that lets you live the last 8 minutes of some other dude's life. But I love the idea that in so many sci-fi things, they build these rules like we saw in Inception, and it didn't make any sense either. But within those rules, it's fun to play and see what's possible and watch people try to break their own rules in sci-fi epics. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. You have to get past the idea of and in fact, you just don't even consider the idea of well, how could this be possible, right? And I think some people like me are going to be put off a little by the name source code because we expect freaking source code, not seeing command lines on screen, but something that has to do with the source code. And this is the opposite of that. They're saying well, the source code means that you can go into the last 8 minutes of somebody's life, and we're really not going to explain that. And that's fine, but the name is for a certain niche of the community that probably listens to this show. It means something a little more, and so that's unfortunate. But once you get past those two things, and they're really not that hard to get past, just be all right, that's the MacGuffin, right? From then on, brilliant. What if you could go live the last 8 minutes of someone's life over and over and over again? And the brilliant part is you can't just do it once, you can do it again. So you actually learn from it the first time. It's oh, right, that happened. Okay, well, I'm going to go back. Now, one thing that I'm curious about, why does Jake Gyllenhaal's character not know he's in the source code?
I can easily see a scenario where it's it's common, Captain. When you wake up, it's hard to remember. We'll fill you in. They're almost bored.
But the next few times he remembers.
Yeah.
Well, the first time you get into the source code. Yeah, okay.
So, okay, now tell me this. Are you the type of person who gets super annoyed when every time somebody does something, they go clickety-clack on the keyboard and go beep, and then they're like, open a port. And when they do that technical jargon, are you somebody who's annoyed by how obviously impossible and wrong it is since you are so tech-savvy?
It's a very delicate balance you have to strike, right? I actually don't mind the clickety-clackety-click, right? Like, to me, that's like, all right, so you have to type, and I don't expect you to go to the trouble to figure out exactly what you would type, so I can handle, like, typing had to occur, and so we make typing noises. That's fine. I'll get past that. What I don't like is when it's like, you've got the huge monitors, the graphic user interface that would never happen that says, enter password here, and your password is in 10-foot-tall characters, and it's not starred out because we type in swordfish, and that bothers me. I'm like, no, that's not the way it would work.
Actually, don't mind that. I don't mind it because you have to tell the story, and if they were writing a novel, they could say he typed the word swordfish, but everyone else just saw asterisks, right? But
there are some other ways to handle it. Just go like, password swordfish. Type it in. Okay.
I don't mind that. Like, think about it this way. Imagine you're watching the show through movie goggles, right? And the way movie goggles work is you see things not as they actually were, but with the feeling that they were meant to have. And I don't mind it in that regard. Now, I tell you what I do mind are when there's physical things that are impossible. And Star Trek was a great example of this. They knew when they were breaking the rules, but they would make up a word for why it's okay. You know, it's like you can't go from 0 to warp 5 instantly. You know, you'd be squashed against the back of the ship. And so, activate the inertial dampeners. Okay, well, apparently they have that worked out. As long as there's some kind of nod to it, then you're fine. But like the storytelling elements, that's just a function of how you got to tell a story in a movie. You got to get past that because there's no way. Look at the Matrix. There's no way even we can.
The Matrix is a good example for me because it's like, that's the way this computer stuff looks, and that's the end of the story, right? That's great. What I don't like is when, and actually it's not an issue in the source code because they're doing something entirely different. But what I don't like is when they're like, okay, go on the internet, and this big pink box comes up that says internet. Like, no, that's not the way it works. Movies have gotten better about that as the internet has become more widespread because you can't get away with it. Before that, it's the bane of knowing something about something that not everyone else knows about. So the movie thinks, I'll get away with fudging that because nobody will really be able to tell. You don't see that much anymore. And there was nothing in this movie that rung my bell, or this trailer anyway. There's nothing that I saw. I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, okay, why do we need that many monitors? And I don't care. Like, I'm more interested in the effects of what happens when you can go back 8 minutes. And I'm interested with how they handle the idea of, can I change things? Because it's essentially a time travel story at that point.
Well, isn't that something that we love from our science fiction, is the ability to have a new framework to daydream? Like we talked about Primer before. I love Primer because it was a different type of time travel story than I had ever experienced before. The idea that you could go backwards in time, but only at the exact same speed that you could go forward. So if you wanted to go 12 hours into the past, guess what? You'd sit in this box for 12 hours and then just get off at the right part of the ride. And that has really stuck with me. And I've had all these interesting thought experiments in that world, and I love and welcome the opportunity to have a similar experience with source code as well.
All right, shall we move on to tube tops?
Absolutely. Show me your tube tops.
Venture Brothers season finale was on Sunday. Are you a Venture Brothers fan?
I absolutely adore the Venture Brothers. I love them, and strangely, part of the my rituals used to be every Sunday night. It was Saturday morning cartoons for me, and I would always watch all of Adult Swim live. But I got the kids running around now, so I usually don't turn it on. I don't want them watching the shows that are on Sunday night, and they've got to go to bed. And then when I do have time, I want to watch on purpose television. And for some reason, they fell out of my ritual. So I'm a season and a half behind, and which is killing me. I can't wait I'm going to gorge myself on the Venture Brothers. It is.
Does your wife watch it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We watch it together, and it's one of those shows that there are so many jokes that are so fast. It takes 45 minutes to watch because you keep having to pause it and say, see that guy in the background? He's a reference to this one Hanna-Barbera property from 1972 or whatever.
Right.
It's like it's so dense and so good. I love it.
All I'm going to say, excellent finale, absolutely worth catching up to watch, and ask your wife for a Rusty Venture.
Oh my gosh. All right.
You finished the Great The Wire experiment, did you not?
I did. I finished it less than 24 hours ago, And wow, was that last episode not perfect. It was exactly right for what they had been doing on The Wire. It was meaningful and it had that kind of sweeping, this is your world type moment, but it didn't feel cheesy at all. I really, really dug it. And for as much as I hated my first 3 episodes of The Wire, I loved it at the end. And what I want to do is pass on the Great The Wire Challenge to all of our listeners and viewers and tell us if you're going to participate in the Great The Wire The Challenge. We should add the challenge, the Great The Wire The Challenge. Write us at framerateshow@gmail.com and tell us if you're going to get into it. What do you think of the first few episodes? And then tell us what you think by the time you make it to the end, because I'm a convert. One of the best shows in the history of television. Absolutely.
One of the best typos I have seen in a long time was earlier this week during the Tech News Today pre-show when someone asked, "Hey, Tom, what do you think of The Walkin' Dead?" WALKEN.
The Walking Dead?
Brains. I carried these brains for you.
I had this uncomfortable hunk of flesh in my backside.
I'm very hungry for your brains.
Yes, definitely caught up on Walking Dead. How are you feeling about it? And have you read all of the comics? I don't know if we've talked about that.
I am all the way caught up on the comics. I am all the way caught up on the TV show. This week's episode was the biggest departure for comic fans. I was trying not to be too annoying in saying like, "Oh, this never happened in the comic. Where are they going with this?" And at first, I was nervous about this development where they're still in the city, because I'm kind of like, get on the road. We want to get on the road. We want to get to the prison. Like, that's where it really started to click for me as a comic book reader. And so I'm a little impatient about that with the TV show. And this stuff in Atlanta, when they first started doing it, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a weaker version of something else that happens down the line maybe. But it turned out brilliant. And I have to congratulate the writers for adding in an element that absolutely captures the feeling of the situations that the comic book puts you in an entirely new way.
Do you know who wrote that episode?
No, I don't.
That was the first episode written by Robert Kirkman. So if there's anyone who
there you go. Well, that's why.
To go off the rails, it's Robert Kirkman. So you got an extra episode from the actual author of The Walking Dead. And my co-host on NSFW, Justin Robert Young, brought up a very, very good point. When you have a show where we talk about movies and TV and viral videos, there are certain things that we can afford to play careful dancing spoiler games, but there are some things we should just declare sacrifice zones. And I think it's pretty clear that we can't keep our mouths shut and we can't talk about The Walking Dead.
I don't think we've spoiled anything to this point in this episode, do you?
Well, there are, for example, just now, I mean, and everyone plug your ears. If you think this is a spoiler, you said, I can't wait for them to get to the prison. That's a big moment in the comic when they come over.
Okay, but that's not a spoiler.
Well, yes, of course it is.
How is it a spoiler?
But because every time they turn a corner and every time you see a kid come running back saying, "Oh, you're not going to believe what we see," or you suspect what they're going to see, right? And it's a disappointment either way.
Here's why I don't think it's a spoiler. All right, and please leave the chat room if you think this is a spoiler, because I'm going to make it worse. I don't think it's a spoiler because if you haven't read the comic book, that means nothing to you. The fact that there's a prison, I don't know, that doesn't give anything away. If you have read the comic book, you know it's coming, right? And so only thing that spoils is that, by episode 3, they haven't got to the prison yet. But that doesn't tell you what happened or how they got there or anything. That's not a spoiler.
It fundamentally changes your appreciation for the event when it occurs. Now you know when they show up at a prison that it's going to be a big deal. And you may not know why, but it causes you to totally regard this environment differently than if you were approaching it for the first time not knowing anything. It's the same thing as, my day job is to be a magician. And it doesn't matter. You may say, "Oh, well, so-and-so says he thinks he knows how your mind reading trick's done." And you give a theory and they're like, "Well, that's totally wrong." You're like, "Oh, well, then it doesn't matter." It does matter, because whether they're right or whether they're wrong, they think they know how it's done. And as a result, they didn't experience magic. That's what you do if you give these little nuggets. Like we've mentioned the governor. And now when some guy introduced himself,
I think that's more of a spoiler than anything. But again, I've sat there watching True Blood with my wife, who's read all the Sookie Stackhouse books, and she says things like, "Oh, I wonder if they're going to find out about Sookie." Well, sure, that's a little bit of a spoiler because now I know there's something about Sookie that I need to wait to find out. But it doesn't spoil anything.
It's
no,
you're
no
right.
more of a spoiler than watching a trailer of a movie. We just watched the trailer for Source Code, and we were spoiled on the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal actually goes back to the 8 minutes and knows what's going to happen.
And you know what? That's a very good point. And in fact, I accidentally showed Jeff Kanata, host of the Totally Rad Show, I started to play the Inception trailer, and he got up and left the computer because he spent 6 months not looking at one frame or knowing one fact about the show, because all he knew is that it was Christopher Nolan and that it had Leonardo DiCaprio, and he wanted to experience it completely fresh without any predisposition or any prejudgment going into it. And I felt really bad that I robbed him, even with just a 3-second visual.
I understand that, and I get that some people may want to do that, but you have to realize in this world that we live in that is almost impossible. And so that's like having a condition. You need to warn people about that ahead of time. Like, hey, I'm allergic to peanuts, right? Right? Because otherwise you may just serve peanuts to everybody unless they tell you, hold on, I'm allergic to nuts. So if you're going through I don't want to be spoiled on Inception, anytime you're around anybody who even possibly might say anything, you need to let them know. You need to wear a button or something. And as soon as we start saying, hey, The Walking Dead, what do you think about that? You should shut off the show if you want to be that hermetically sealed against it.
What about Lost? And we're gonna give either spoiler or non-spoiler. I don't know. You tell me. But let's say somebody's starting Lost, and then the first thing you say is like, oh, have they found the hatch yet? It's like that fundamentally changes your understanding of what kind of show you're watching. That one phrase now lets you know that, oh, I thought we were in this box, but I guess there's something over here as well.
Well, yeah, I think that is different because, and you're right, this is a spoiler alert for Lost, which is saying have they found the hatch lets you know an important piece of information that this island is not 100% deserted, which they already kind of know because there was a radio tower on it in the first episode, right? But I think there's more information carried in that than there is by saying prison. Prison,
you know what?
Prison is a building. It could be a prison in Atlanta. It could be a prison somewhere else. It could be an empty prison. It could be a prison full of zombies. It could be a prison full of clowns. Who knows? It just means there is a building somewhere that they will get to. It gives you absolutely no information about the world or the story.
I submit that it's roughly equivalent to saying, have they found the hatch yet? And in fact,
because I
framerateshow@gmail.com. Framerateshow@gmail.com. Let us know.
All right.
Right.
Yeah, we're actually out of time, but we do have a Cipro video that we need to get to, right?
Oh, yes. Is that all loaded up on your end? Can you guys play that for us?
All right, we're gonna skip IO9's 30 awesome disaster movie money shots, but you have to go check it out. Go to IO9, search 30 awesome disaster movie money shots. They put the best parts of 30 disaster movies on one page. It'll blow your mind.
A TV show, I thought it was like on TBS or something, but it was called like 30-minute movies, where they took entire movies and edited them down to just 30 minutes.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
Everything. I don't know if I imagined that or if it was around in the left. I thought it was a brilliant idea, and the only thing I could think of is that licensing fees must have killed them, because for a full license for a movie, then you chop it down to 30 minutes, then then you're gonna regret.
You can only sell 30 minutes worth of advertising there. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, our Cipro video though comes from Woodstock. This is making the rounds now. It's Adam Savage in Seattle talking about going through the security checkpoint on his way out to Woodstock.
Ladies and gentlemen,
sorry,
Mr. Adam Savage. So I have this pre-flight plan. Actually, I take some strange things home in my laptop bag from work, as you can imagine. And so before I get on a plane, some of those things are not only esoteric and potentially dangerous, but also expensive and hard to find. So I go through my laptop bag every time I fly to make sure nothing nefarious gets on there, except today. And I'm going through the TSA checkpoint, and they're doing scanner, they put me through the body scanner, which makes, for some reason, my penis feel really small. And then I get onto the airplane, and I look and I notice that I've brought this thing with me. 2 12-inch long steel razor blades. I'm like, what the f***, TSA? You're gonna look at my junk and somehow you missed this? My tiny junk is offended. Oh, and a whole bunch of nuts and bolts that were in there too, which I figure must look like really dated. No, they were, I don't know.
So he goes on to say he's not going to risk trying to take him back because he's afraid he will get caught. How did those not get scanned?
Let me tell you, dude, they're just hardworking people doing what they can do, and sometimes they miss stuff. And, you know, people know that I'm very opinionated on the TSA, on their policy, and the constitutionality of what they're doing. So I think in order to maintain the highest number of fans, I'm just going to say, don't know. Another wacky story from the web. But boy, is the TSA ever blowing up as far as talking about it on the web goes right now. There's a ton of videos out there.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's and they're starting to show cracks, and they've modified the system they came out with a policy saying what will happen if you refuse the pat down, because there was some controversy about whether someone should get sued or not because of that. The president has said they're going to review this. So yeah, it's interesting, but no matter what you think of the TSA policy and its effectiveness, though, the idea that 2 long razor blades could slip through security is kind of frightening.
Well, yeah, and it's a statistical look. The TSA, for all their hard work and for all the bureaucracy, they do not have a stellar record because they send people in trying to sneak objects past, and depending on where you look at the numbers, anywhere from as low as 40% of them slip through to as many as 90% of them slip through, and it's just a case where it's like, I mean, what an impossible task they've been charged with, and on top of that, they finally. You don't even want to get me started. You don't even want to get me started on this.
All right. Let's finish up with an email to framerateshow@gmail.com. It's actually 2 letters in one asking about Dexter.
Yeah. This friend, I told you, I'll read this first one here. Hello, Tom and Brian. There's an article. Wait, that is not what I thought it was. Apparently, it got moved over here. Love the show. Been looking for a geek TV podcast for a while now, but you guys have yet to mention one of my favorites and a very popular show, Dexter. I'm sure you've heard of it. Maybe it could be your next show to experience. You want to take the other?
Yeah, I know Showtime's Dexter is quite controversial, given that the main character is a serial killer of whom we are sort of meant to root for him. But it's similar in style to Batman and all the other superheroes who have taken the law into their own hands as a vigilante. The writing and acting on the show are phenomenal, and though some may disagree, are better than all regular cable shows. And a funny geeky thing about the show's bad guys, they all use Macs, while the police department in Dexter use PCs. I assume he means Windows PCs. I wonder if that's a new Apple marketing campaign. If you're bad enough for Dexter, then you're different enough for a Mac.
I don't know about that last part, but I tried watching the first 2 or 3 episodes of Dexter, and I thought it was good, but I suspected that I wasn't the right target for it. It seems to me like a lot of shows just need a good gimmick to get people to watch the first 4 or 5 episodes, and then you start to care about the characters, and then the writers can explore all these little side ventures and do all kinds of interesting things. And I felt like the gimmick is, hey, let's watch a serial murderer kill people. And I'm like, that's not fun for me. That's not. I don't get off on the torture porn. I don't dig it in horror movies, and you know, I dig agonizing decisions to be made, and I'd like to see more of those earlier and less focus on the blood and the splattering, because that part just doesn't do anything for me. But I'm not gonna say, you know, maybe the show will eventually have those agonizing choices that suck me in, but the first 3 episodes I didn't see it. How about you?
I've put off Dexter as one of those shows that I should watch, that will be good for me to watch in my old age when I retire. It's right there alongside 24. I just don't have time, and it's somehow, for some reason, lower on my priority list, and I know it shouldn't be. It's one of the better shows on television, I am told by everyone, but I just haven't prioritized it, which The Wire was like that until this summer. So
we'll have to do the Great Dexter experiment.
Maybe we'll have to try, because you watched a few episodes and didn't like The Wire either, but you kept going, and it ended up satisfying you. So who knows?
Right. G. Rees in the chat room says that's not really what the show is about at all, Scam School Brian. And I get that. And I understand that eventually that's not what the show's about at all. But early on, wow, do they lay it on thick. And I had the same problem with Mad Men. The first 3 episodes were like, we're smoking and children are putting bags over their heads because they don't know that it could kill them. And look, wasn't the 1960s crazy? And it was really distracting before I had characters and situations that I cared about. And I suspect that's what's happening with the first few episodes of Dexter for me as well.
Never watch the first 3 episodes of anything. I think that's what we've learned today.
Yes. Boy, even you go back and watch the first few episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation.
That's hilarious.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching episode 3 of Frame Rate. You can email us, framerateshow@gmail.com, and we will read it. In fact, Brian's been getting back to people right and left, so, you know, you might even get a personal response. Who knows?
See how long that lasts.
See you later. It's like spelling gray with an E or an A.
Yeah, I mean, so I have audio spelled one way.
Just spell it the same way, and I really honestly could not care less how you spell it. They're both correct. One is referring to the fact that they're very clean, and the other is that they're very tight. They both work.
I don't know. We're ready to go here.
Yeah, I'm otherwise ready to go.
Oh, I don't think I'm ready to go anymore.
I'm not going to argue with this. Everyone out. Out. Now that's a tidy whitey.
Stop.
What? It's the hot new video. It's tearing up the interwebs.
All right. I just don't think I'm ready. Hold on.
Now Jason's broken.
That hurt. Okay.
It's the sneak attack that gets you.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that one. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, crud.
Oh, man.
Hang on. I'm all dark and or mysterious.
Okay.
It was a dark and stormy night.
Tried to get... oh, you actually teared up on that.
I did.
He did.
I think it was the lack of oxygen because I couldn't breathe.
You made me a very happy man today, Jason.